Well, woo-hoo! Good morning. See, if we put 3, some people freak out. I want to tell you something. This morning, it's more than I guess this morning. It started with last week. Last week, more. Last week, you can turn this mic up a little bit. It doesn't feed back as much. I want to tell you about my message last week. So I woke up. It was slow. It was discombobulated. It was everything that I don't like. The reason why I went through when I first started speaking, I had an issue that I would get done speaking and I'd be like, "Oh, what was that? What, did I teach that wrong? Was this right? I should have shared that?" And by the time you get done with Sunday afternoon, guess what happens? It's like, well, I should have just flushed it down the toilet. And the only thing that saves is that you'd have one person that might have came up at the end and been like, "That's exactly what I needed." Last week I took and taught a message, and whenever it's still people still pull stuff off of it. But when I get done with it, I was watching a pastor this morning, and he was talking on the standard of their church, setting a standard of what it is. And I sit there and think about what teaching the Word, and the Word, I don't want the Word to be taught and it just to be okay. See, I've talked with my dad before, Pastor George, sitting there speaking about what's your expectation of the service. See, my expectation is not to strike out. My expectation isn't to get a single. We'll do a baseball reference here. I talk to kids with baseball. I'm not a baseball person, but I talk to kids with baseball, and I said, "You realize you fail 75% of the time." This isn't baseball. I'm not looking to strike out. I'm not looking to even get a single. I'm not. What's the standard? What's my standard? What's the standard for this church? It's to have a home run. It's to knock it out of the park. It's to have you come in and you say, well, if you get used to that, there's always a grand slam. There's always a winning the game. See, a home run doesn't mean you win. A home run just means that you scored. Right? It means that you were successful. It means you're 100%. Goal is 100%. This morning's message, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, honestly. Because see, last week I'm sitting there going through it, and it just wasn't clicking. The message last week, it was clouded and confused, and then I got up here and started speaking on it, and then it was even more clouded and even more confused. I walked in this morning, and I walked up on that side, this side's the same way, and there's a piece of trim down here on the bottom. And this piece of trim, it's popping away from the wall. I didn't notice it before. I know what it is. I didn't leave room for it to grow. I didn't leave room for it to expand. I didn't leave room for it to become more. I put stress and a load on it, and I pulled it around, and I shot it, and I screwed it in, and I stapled it, and I'm like, that will hold. But that's not what the problem is. The problem is that I didn't give it space for it to become more. When we're looking at our service and looking at our life as we restrict ourselves to what we are today, we restrict ourselves to what we can see, not what God can see. We don't give ourselves room to grow. We think we have to fit our life full of every single thing to make sure that it's full. I'm going to be full of God. I'm going to be full of what He wants in my life. But then we don't give room for God to grow inside of us. Because we're so packed full of all the stuff that the world says we need to have, that my pastor says I need to have, that my mom says I need to have. I'm not giving myself enough room to be able to grow and take that next step of my life. My message today was talking about life in review. I'm going to tell you right now that I'm pretty good at driving backwards. I really am. I'm taking these off. It's hot today. I wore sandals. I'm really pretty good at driving back. Right, my kids can tell you when they come down to the bus and maybe my truck was pulled in the wrong way. I'd get in my truck and I'd back down the driveway, 20, 30 miles an hour, whip around a bridge, get down there, and the bus driver's like, she says, you're pretty talented at that. I'm like, well, thanks. It came from years of driving a lawnmower backwards because my dad decided to take and put the hydrostat more forward than he did backwards, so slow me down so I didn't go in and tear up the hydrostat going into the barn. That's how you get good at driving backwards. So unless I'm driving backwards, I'm not going to see going backwards. The life in review means that everything that I just saw here, I'm seeing here. Right? As I'm going through it, I'm seeing a different viewpoint, but I'm seeing the same thing that I had. See, I'm not giving myself a opportunity to grow with what God has if I'm always taking and looking at my mirror of where it is. I'm going to fall apart because I cannot. While I can sit there and probably drive pretty decent if I know the road, I could probably drive pretty decent looking through the mirror. Anybody else? If I go slow enough, right? I'm not saying I'm moving along that, but I could do it. I mean, we can all do it in 421. I can test it right here, and we're going straight, right? But then when I get down, let's say we're going this way, and I get down and go down to the curve down here, what's going to happen? Right? I'm going around the campgrounds down here, and it starts to curve. What's going to happen? It's going to get real dangerous for me, isn't it? My room to grow is me taking ownership of myself. Philippians 3, if you have a Bible, I would like you to. I was actually thinking about this the other night. I'm one of the worst ones. It's not like it's a big deal. But I remember when I was a kid and we'd say, please go to Philippians 3. And you'd hear, and I'm looking in the thesaurus trying to find where Philippians is at. Okay, is that New or Old Testament? Nobody else? Right? Donnie and you? Yeah, okay. So when you like to have those, if you had the little pieces on the side of your Bible, then you just weren't as godly as the next person because, you didn't know where the